Good morning. Welcome to the Light on Suitability podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Comeau. I'm here with Mike again, and Joe is attempting to sign on. And so instead of starting to talk about the topic, which was going to be not know your it's legal standards for parole. We're going to wait for Joe since it's Joe's book, and I'm going to chat with Mike. He hasn't been here for a couple of weekends because he's been busy getting his life together. So why don't you update us on all the great things that have been happening? I loved your story, Mike, about the what was it again? The the opportunity that you had. And I thought it was really great that, you really had to put a lot of your step work into process through that offer acceptance, but couldn't do it because of the supervisor and that sort of thing. So I think that would be beneficial to start the program off before we got to the exciting topic of legal standards on parole. And Joe's here. Welcome, welcome. You figured it out on your phone. Excellent, excellent. Sorry about the hassle, Joe. You got your coffee, so that's good.
There we
Good
go.
morning, Joe.
Good morning. Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. Nice to be
Good.
back.
Just like with everybody, and their
Great.
computer problems can be kind of frustrating. So Mike had a really interesting share that he had.
Yeah. So this week, I got a job offer, a very good job offer. 27. It was like $27.50 an hour. 40 hours a week, doing exactly what I want to do, working in the recovery field. And I get a call from the hiring agent, Nicole, and she's telling me that first watch shift, which is the 7 a.m. shift, already got filled. But she has a shift she really wants me to be in because she thinks I'd be great at it, which is the overnight shift. And it's good money. It has a shift differential, great benefits, the whole 9 yards. And I had to turn the job down. And it wasn't because I wanted to. I did everything I could to be able to accept the job. I talked to my parole agents. I talked to my housing manager, and the parole agent was fine with it. He was like, yeah, we have no trouble. We want you on a curfew while you're in transitional housing, but we'll just change it to the daytime. So you do 6 hours of curfew during the day. And great. So talking to the house manager, he is not budging an inch. Curfew is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No ifs, ands, or buts. So I had to turn down the job, but I talked to Nicole, the hiring agent, and explained my situation. I was straight up with her because this is one of those situations where my experience in being justice impacted and being, so active in recovery is a benefit. So I was just straight up with her, I'm on parole. I cannot take the job because of the hours. I have a curfew that they are not budging on. So she told me that if, an earlier shift comes available, it's mine. She's going to get right on it. And I also explained to her that, in the middle of December, my transitional housing ends. I'm on my own. And if there's still a overnight shift available, please keep me in mind for it. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. She was ready to hire me without interview. She was really impressed with my resume and my cover letter and everything else. She said, yeah, you have the job right now. Come in and sign the paperwork. And I just couldn't do it. It put a lot of my coping skills to the test this week. That was such an awesome opportunity. and I missed it by that much. But you know what? Something will come along that I can accept, and even if it's not as perfect as the job I was just looking at, you know what? It's a job. It'll help me support myself, get into what I need to do, and who knows? It could turn out to be a better job in the future, or hang with it until I can get in with Star, and then take Star's offer. Either way, I come out better for it. It's all just a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
That's great, though. I think it's great. I think it's just all part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And in 12-step programs, you learn a number of different concepts. I mean, it brings up a number of different concepts for 12-step programming. And, life doesn't just go the way we want it to go every single day. I mean, I learned that the hard way this year. My life was going fantastic. I thought, oh my God, my life, could it get any better in some ways? The beginning of the year, and then the universe just came along, or God or Holy Spirit or the ego or somebody came along and just said, oh, you think you got this going? Like the book of Job. You think you got this, girl? All right. Take some of this and take some more. And hey, how about some more? And you know what? I did all right. I didn't do as great as I would have liked. And so, I just reached out for help. And that's kind of the point. That's the whole point of it. It isn't that it's not the best job or the best house or the best whatever dog, love of my life. Just, that's the way it goes. And so I am acutely aware today of how that works, and I'm excited about it. I don't love it. I would like to have my life couldn't get any better, go back, do over, go back to March, go back to February or even April, and just say, I love my life. I want it to just stay, but it's just like eating a carton of ice cream. It's lovely. It's wonderful, but you can't eat another carton right after that one.
Yeah. Well, and the Rolling Stones have a song that's, I think, says a whole lot. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you'll just find you get what you need.
Yeah. I saw her today at the reception.
Yeah.
So, and we won't go to the next line because that's,
Yeah, that goes backwards.
Okay. Today we are going to definitely talk quickly, as quickly as we can, about legal standards for parole. So I'm actually not in my office. I don't have access to my book. I don't have a cheat sheet. I'm totally winging it. So I'm going to rely on you, Joe, to let us know about this strategy. I can't even remember the number. My apologies, Joe, for not giving you the respect that you deserve. And what is this chapter about? Why is it important for eligible parolees to understand in terms of getting themselves ready to be found suitable for parole?
Well, it's strategy 18, legal standards for suitability. And, these are the precedents for the legal rights, that they have a right to a hearing, a right to an attorney, which are basic ones. And then there's other rights they have as well, like they have rights to do a C-file review, an Olson review, and of course their disability rights. You have to ensure effective communication. So, this is all, they all go to that. Number one, due process rights are met, that they have a hearing and it's timely. And then And then it goes also, what I haven't mentioned yet, the standards for finding suitability. About the other cases like Chaputis and Lawrence. Lawrence, I think, was a landmark case in that after the passage of time, uh, they applied a some evidence standard that was first introduced in Rosencrantz, and to come up with a decision, they only need some evidence that would indicate unsuitability, or something about them that could endanger public safety. And they can, after a while, the crime becomes less and less important, unless there's something about the inmate that they do that where the commissioners can show a nexus to the crime. So Lawrence was important, and that the incarcerated person receives individualized treatment and due consideration, based on the case, and the amount of rehabilitation and current dangerousness, if the commissioners find a nexus to the life crime. They also have a right not to talk at the hearing, or not to talk about the crime at the hearing. That's another consideration as well. And sometimes it's important that an incarcerated person does not talk about the crime. Maybe at times they could be up for resentencing or something, and they don't want to say anything that would affect that case. And I offer a waiver or a stipulation to the inmate where that may be more appropriate going forward, that they can waive it for a year and then come back after all of their legal resentencing is taken care of. So there's they have a lot of legal rights, and that's why they have an attorney to explain those to them and to explain what could happen if they talk about the crime, if they don't talk about the crime. That's all legal advice for them based on the case law and the rules.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's some concern about talking about the crime, and there's some concern about not talking about the crime in people I've talked to. And for those who are afraid to not talk about their crime for whatever reason, there seems to be a perception of a stigma that if you don't talk about your crime, the board is going to hold that against you. And I know under the legal precedent, that's not true. Does it happen? I can't say yes or no, but the perception is there and the stigma is there, and it's something that I think needs to be addressed with the clients and the incarcerated persons that are going before the board. Do I talk to them about the crime or do I not? For me, it was easy. I mean, talking about my crime is something I needed to do. I needed to clear my soul, clear my conscience, and just get it out there. And, there was never any doubt that I was the one responsible for this. So taking accountability for it was easy for me. It's not so easy for some people. Like you said, that some of them are in court, some of them are trying for resentencing, 1170 hearings, all the various stuff like that. So there's those considerations that have to be made. And each person has to make the decision on their own.
Okay, close the book.
Yeah. Sorry. So,
Go for it. I haven't had coffee yet, but I'll play your game. Go ahead.
I'm on a podcast right now.
I got you.
Sorry, that was my aunt. Anyway, that's some of the things we have to consider. And, you know, the stigma of not speaking is really heavy and it bothers a lot of people. But there's some people that, they proclaim their innocence this whole time. Whether it's factual or not, speaking about the life crime could go against something they've got going. It could hurt them in the long run. Every man's got to make his decision for himself. But the stigma, and I really, really hate that word stigma, but that's what it is. It's a stigma. People have a perception that it's always going to go against you if you don't talk. By our rights, we don't have to talk about our life crime. Does it help us or hurt us? It depends on the situation. I've seen people, I got a 3-year denial and I didn't talk about my life crime. Well, is that what got you the denial? Well, there was this, and this. Well, let's focus on this other stuff and let's not worry about whether you talked about your life crime right now or not. In the future, you may decide you want to, but let's work on these points that they specifically pointed out. Let's not worry about what somebody may have perceived or what you perceived they may have perceived. And as the incarcerated population, we really make a whole lot of stuff that we tend to believe. So, getting ready for board, I've heard numerous different stories. Oh, well, you don't have to talk about your life crime, but they're going to hold it against you if you don't. Oh, if you go in there and you tell it from your point of view, you're done. Yeah, it's over. If you don't get everything exactly right, it's going to go against you. No, that's not the experience I had. And my perception of my life crime varied a little bit from my parole or my probation report because it was my perception. Yeah, the meat and potatoes of the thing were the same. The facts of the case were the same. It was the mental state that was leading up to it that was different. And that's what I really addressed when I talked to the board. We all know that, at 2:15 that morning, I went in there with a gun. There's no debating that. It is a stone cold fact. But it's the why that I think is more important to address if you're going to talk to the board about your crime. Because we need to understand for ourselves why we've done this, but also the commissioners need to understand for themselves and they need to see that understanding in you. And when we address this legal precedent that we do not have to talk to the board, but if you don't, it's all bad. Talk to your attorney. That's what they're there for. And, I could have very easily said, I stipulate to whatever the facts are because I talked about my case last time. I don't want to talk about it this time, whatever. But I did. Like I said, though, it's easier for me than some people because I've worked so hard. But don't let fear make you make a bad decision. Use all the information at your disposal. Learn from your attorney what is going to be the best situation for you because your attorney is there to guide you through this. They're not going to tell you what to do for yourselves. That's not their job. What they're going to do is they're going to give you options. They're going to give you information so you can make an informed decision based on what the law is. The laws are there not only to protect society, but they're there to protect us. We have to work within the realms of the law to even be found suitable. That is important. Work within the law. Don't cut corners. Don't act out of fear. Make an informed decision. Talk to your attorney. All these things are there for a reason, and we just have to make our own decision. That's the end of all of this. We have to make our own decision. But are you doing it out of fear? Are you doing it out of a perceived stigma? Or are you going to get the best information you can from the people that are there to represent you and to guide you? I don't know the law. My guarantee is 90% of them, 90% of us that go before the board don't know the law. And those of us that do, that rare 9 or 10%, only know jailhouse law. None of us are sitting there as licensed attorneys. We're not trained in the law. We're not trained to break this stuff down and make the best decision on it. That's why we have attorneys. Use them. Don't be afraid to ask a question because it might sound silly or stupid. If we don't ask these questions, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, literally. Get the information from your attorney. They're going to give you the best advice they can. They're going to give you the best options and the best education. And I've got to hand it to Elizabeth. When I was getting ready for board, my first attorney, I saw her 3 times in the 6 months leading up to board. Elizabeth, I think we saw each other, 5 or 6 times leading up to board? But every week, I would get something in the mail from this attorney that gave me information on what I need to do to prepare, how I face the challenging issues, what the laws are that I need to address and be concerned about, whether or not to speak about my crime to the board. That's the things that a good attorney does. That's the things that you need to listen to. Because if these people are here working for you and fighting for you, why aren't you going to fight for yourself? Why aren't you going to learn and make the best decision possible? And I keep circling back to making the informed decision and quit acting out of stigma and fear. Because ultimately, if we'd act with informed decision making in our lives early, we wouldn't have ended up in the position we were in prison. Think about that. So,
That's really an interesting point to make, is because a lot of our clients say, well, I'm going to do it this way and this way and this way. It's like, just like step 1 says, and 2 and 3, you don't make good decisions for yourself. You need to turn this over to a higher power. And that higher power could be, in this situation, the lawyer and the lawyer's advice to you. Well, the guys on the yard said, did those guys use a lot of good judgment in getting where they got? And are they really giving you accurate information? Because everybody's got their own sort of twist on things, on how, their perception of the world, and their perception is what works best for them. But I'm talking in a way that soothes their cognitive dissonance or whatever about the situation, rather than the cold hard facts. So, the cold hard facts is everybody should be working the 12 steps in prison. I don't care which program you use it, take what you need, leave the rest, and use it. Because step 1, admit that I am powerless over my XYZ. Steps 2 and 3, turn it over because I don't do it well on my own. Steps 4, figure out what the heck is wrong with me and what's right with me. Actually, step 4 doesn't limit it to just what's wrong. It just says make a moral inventory. And then step 5, tell somebody the exact nature of our wrongs. And that somebody, by the way, is the Board of Parole hearing. So if you're really working your steps, then you are coming to the hearing and you are allocuting to everything you've done, because it's important to show, one, that you work the steps, two, that you are remorseful, accountable under in re Shaputis, the case that Joe mentioned, an extremely important case. And it gives the board something to use to say, hey, this is a good candidate. And if there's any weaknesses in your overall presentation, maybe you're just weak in this one area for whatever reason. Okay. But you can really shine over here. If you come in at the beginning of this hearing and truly shine and lay it all on the table as to what you did in a way that makes it sound like, wow, you're really accountable and you really understand what you did to those victims, because your statement of accountability gives you a way to highlight all of the programs that you've studied: denial management, victim impact, living amends, part of this 12-step programs. It just gives you a way to showcase all of that. You just come in, humility, contrition. I want to make this right by giving people closure about what happened over there, because when it was just me and so, the crime going down, the person that knows everything about that crime is me, person sitting at the Board of Parole, usually. Okay. And all of that. It's such an important process. I don't like guys to get hung up on regurgitating probation officer's report or saying stuff that they didn't do. I really do not think the majority of the commissioners require that. Some commissioners misapprehend the law, but if you come in with everything else, but here's my entire rap sheet of, I didn't do this crime, this didn't happen, and I'll tell you why, but I did all this other stuff. I'm remorseful for all that stuff. I understand victim impact for all that stuff. I understand that I have all these character defects, that I need this huge laundry list of relapse prevention planning tools, techniques, and so on. I know all the warning signs on parole. I have a great parole plan in place. I know what's coming. I know there are going to be challenges, just like Mike said, which was another way that Mike was able to come in and showcase his relapse prevention planning strategies. He was able to use that part of him that he found resilience. Okay. He learned resilience. He learned how to say, okay, I'm disappointed. Identified a feeling, something people aren't able to do very much. I'm able to identify this feeling. Okay, I'm feeling disappointed. He went and sought out a potential remedy. The remedy didn't work. He didn't go back to criminal thinking, go, well, screw you, I'm taking the job anyway. I'll just, I'll have someone check in for me against the rules, or I'll do something, a workaround, or I'll get mad, or I'll just say, I'll screw all this or screw the world. He's just like, well, not right now, but maybe later. I've got some other opportunities. And, it was, again, a really powerful way of showcasing his 12-step work, his relapse prevention plans that he promised the commissioners that he would see. He would work it. He would continue to stay on track. So it's just all really important. But if you do have a wrinkle in your case where I can't say that I shot the man 5 times because I really wasn't even at the crime scene, okay, talk to your lawyer and be very careful about just coming to the hearing and regurgitating stuff if you didn't do it. But otherwise, 90% of our clients, I think 95% of our clients, participated in the life crime or commitment offense in some fashion that we can build an accountability statement around. and most of the commissioners, if you say it in a way that really hits it home that this is awful, the fact that your participation was there, and without my participation, the crime wouldn't have gone down the way it did, or not as many victims would be harmed, or not as XYZ or whatever. Or I was there as the lookout. I could have come in and saved the day, saved the man, called 911 or whatever. That all needs to be discussed with the lawyer, not the people on the yard, not the correctional counselors. The correctional counselors don't know how to fill out waivers, postponements, and stipulation, which is all different, and all have different legal standards for what makes them good cause or grantable, approvable, or whatever the terms are. That's all I would just say. I just say, if you have a question, think about your 12-step work, and the answer is probably there in it.
Absolutely. And that takes us right back to the informed decision making, getting all the information you can and making your best decision based off of that. It's, it's such a simple concept, but we make it difficult. And I don't think it's just people that are incarcerated. I think it's something people in life generally do to make difficult.
Yeah, what I see is all the parts have to be working in unison together. All 8 cylinders need to be firing, and by that I mean, first of all, the attorney. You got the attorney there, so don't disavow the advice, the input. Then you have the inmate, incarcerated person, and they have to be open to looking at the legal channels they have that to talk about the crime, to not talk about the crime. How is that going to affect this or that? And then you have the board, their perception of you. If you don't talk about the crime, they're going to say, well, you didn't talk about the crime today, so we don't know about your insight, your remorse, blah, blah, blah. So all of these factors have to be weighed, but that's why you have the attorney there for your legal rights to determine what is the best path to follow. And whatever path you do follow, you have to be honest and transparent. You can't, they have your entire file. You can't run anymore. You have to admit stuff that you did if you're gonna be honest and address all of your issues. If you don't, then you're hiding something, and that's the quick way to getting a denial. But more important than that, between a denial or a grant, is you have to change. And the change is the important thing, that you're a different person today. You're rehabilitated, or you're trying to be, and you can't hide anything. You have to admit to stuff, and then let the system work for you. And the attorney's a part of the system, and you're in the system, and following the laws. And the laws that are available to you to ensure that you're heard properly. You have an opportunity to be heard. So those are the ground rules, and you have to follow them.
Right. Well, years ago, I facilitated a group based off the PACE Learning Centers in Alabama. It was called PACE Life Skills. And I believe it was module 22 or 23 was all about systems thinking. And the funny thing is, people would get into the class and we'd start that module. oh, screw the system. The system's always out to get me. It's well, you know what? It's not true. Everything in this life is a system. You know, that pint of ice cream you want to eat, a system made that, and then it's going to go into a system in your body for you to enjoy it and digest it. Systems are everywhere, no matter what you do. Everything in life is a system. So once we get that out of our head that the systems are all out to screw me, and start looking at what the system actually does for us. Yeah. So the system in the cow that produced that milk to make that ice cream is vital. The system that the manufacturer uses to make that ice cream is vital. Otherwise, you don't get that ice cream. The system to sell it to you, the system for you to eat it and digest it, enjoy it. Well, it's the same thing with the law. Every step in here is a process in making that pint of ice cream for you to enjoy. If, this law isn't made, guess what? It may not seem like it's working for you. It may seem like it's out to get you, but without that specific law, your civil rights could get trampled on. That piece of the system is important. Every little cog in this system is important. Don't overlook it if you have the opportunity. Because when we start taking shortcuts and start thinking we know better than the system, that's when we cause a system crash. And that's when we get those 3, 5, 7, 15-year denials. And guess what? Now because you screwed over the system crashed, and now you're screwed again. And, we have to learn to work within the systems. I mean, we get up in prison every day at a specific time to go eat. After we eat, we go to work at a specific time. We do everything by a system. If you're willing to live by a system being incarcerated, why can you not live by a system to earn your freedom? Why can you not take the time to learn what this system requires of you? When we function within the system and let the system do its job, we may not always get the desired outcome or the perfect outcome, but guess what? We're going to get the outcome that the system says is the viable outcome. And in the system of parole, if we do what we're supposed to do and we follow the steps of this system and we're honest about it, you're going to be sitting here where I am today. You're going to be sitting at home with your family, and you're going to be out able to get yourself a car and drive. You're going to get a job where you're making more than 18 cents an hour if you're lucky. You're going to, find a life that is so much more worth living. But you have to be willing to work within the systems. And it really comes down to that. Everything is a system in life. Learn it, use it, and embrace it.
Very well said, Michael.
Thank you.
As always. So, anything to add, Joe, on this topic? It's a good topic. It's a necessary topic. Anything to add? What did we miss from your chapter?
Yeah, no, the rules are there for a reason, and you have the attorney to guide you through them. That's their job. And I would say, use your attorney. Ask as many questions as you can. There's no stupid questions. And the beginning of wisdom is to admit what you don't know and to try to find the answers and use all the resources available, including your attorney. That's what they're there for.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. My first attorney, Miss Ackpenny, she guided me through some of the hardest part of my parole process. I got a 3-year denial out of it, but she got me so much closer. I don't think without her help, I could have ended up with a 5 or 7 very easily. But because she gave me good guidance, good advice, she helped me explore things that I needed to explore to put into perspective, and had me deal with my gambling relapse head on. Instead of getting that 5 or 7, I got a 3-year denial in which the commissioners gave me a roadmap to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came around time for my second hearing, Elizabeth, I mean, she so fine-tuned me to the point to where, I hate to say it, but going into the board hearing, most of the stuff I did was like on autopilot because Elizabeth really, really struck these lessons home to me. And I listened to her and I practiced them, put them into practice in my daily life. I took accountability for them and I heeded the good advice she gave me. And so when I got in there, they would ask a question and most of them were just real easy yes, no answers because I knew the answer. I paid attention to what my attorney said, both of them. And I let them guide me through this to give me the chance of the best outcome.
That's
And
really the
again,
key. That's really the key, is the listening, because the difference between you, the client, and other clients is you were willing to listen
right.
to Miss Penny instead of, I hear, oh, well, they didn't really help me. And I'm like, yeah, you either didn't want the help, you weren't open to the help, you didn't communicate in a way to them that you were open to the help. You either got defensive. Like, I can sit down with Mike and I can tell him, I don't love this letter. This isn't that great. This is fine. Please fix this other thing. And oh, in the meantime, read this other book and make sure you put a book report in on this. And he's like, got it. Yes, yes, yes. Notes, this and this and that. Versus some other client, it's like you tell them that same thing and they lose it. They get defensive. You're against me. And they're just straight. I'm like, it's like clockwork. I'm like, not ready. Not ready. If you're responding to me that way, or the classic, well, am I telling you am I telling you this, or am I telling the board this? I go, ultimately, unless you've got some kind of a complex situation, an issue that we really need to, strategize on, most of this stuff, Mike is the same guy sitting here, I promise you, that sat with me in those attorney rooms, even when it was confidential, that sat in that boardroom. He just is authentic about his life because he worked the steps, he worked his program, and he is remorseful for what he's done. So he doesn't have a problem saying, murdered a man, I murdered my friend. This is why, and this is what I've done to make it right for myself. And I don't deserve to get out of prison ever because it's a life sentence, but the law says I can earn my way out. And as part of my amends, I'm going to do just that. And so that's really the difference. I mean, and fortunately for Mike, he doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder, so he can't get that. It's very difficult for some people to get past because then they can't hear feedback and they don't want to acknowledge that they have flaws. It's very difficult, but that is the key. All of the clients that sit down and go, okay, let me have it, are going to get found suitable. If not, this parole hearing, like Mike said, she was just the two of them created a funnel for me, and Miss Penny had less to work with than I did. Trust me. So she was just funneling him closer and closer, and I'm the one. I'm the one in the end zone, right? I was able to just okay, but Miss Ekpenny had to start literally from punt the ball. So it just was. It's a process, and if you really use those resources and let the attorney guide you on those legal standards and everything, and listen. Mike was willing to listen. Okay, he wasn't sitting there trying to fight and argue about what the advice was. But oh, I've already done that. Well, I've got a certificate in denial management. I was like, okay, well, go back and review the material again because you're missing the point. It's very, it's such a huge thing that I see. I'm like, what is it? What's this thing? This je ne sais quoi that my good clients have, the ones good meaning gonna get into the end zone or end zone, Joe, end zone, whatever, red zone, end zone, but they're gonna get the touchdown, right?
Yep.
Or they're very close, and which ones are not even can't even get the ball punted, right? And I think that's one of the things I notice as a common theme. Listening, willing to listen, willing to be wrong, willing to learn more, willing to make adjustments, not fighting with your lawyer.
Well, here's a funny thing, Elizabeth. If some of your clients put as much effort into the advice that you or Joe or any of these other attorneys give them that they put into being that guy on the yard, the gang member, the politicker, the guy that's always willing and dealing. They even put a fraction of the effort into listening to you guys that they put into that. They're going to come out ahead of the game. But a lot of times we see what's on the prison yard as the most important because we don't want to let the homies down, or we got to get ours, or we got to do whatever it is we do. And you know what? In the end, there's not a damn thing on that prison yard that matters. Not a damn thing. Because everything that matters to me is sitting in this other room over here. And it was that was important enough to drive me to do what I needed to do to get out.
That's right. Have your priorities in the right place,
Yep.
and have that goal, and everything you do has to be funneled into that ultimate goal. And anything that doesn't apply to that, you got to just leave it and go and follow the right path.
Yep, just keep working it. Just keep, what do they say at meetings, Mike? Keep coming back. It works if you work it.
Yeah, it works if you work.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the saying is true too. Just like we work our recovery, we work towards our freedom one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
One day at a time, no instant gratification.
Yep. Because when we start cutting corners, trying to take 2 or 3 steps ahead, guess what? We usually fall on our face and end up starting back close towards the beginning. And we have to make up all that ground again. So would you rather do the extra work to start over and over and over? Or would you rather put in the work right now to do what you need to do and get done with it? It's that simple.
Love it. It's always really excellent when we've got Mike available for Joe and I, because we're not behind the scenes the way our clients are. We're there, but it's not quite the same. And I know that we both, Joe appreciates it, and so do I. So I'm going to wrap it up. I've got to switch gears now to my Course in Miracles. It's somewhat the same. And I really did. I know Joe enjoyed having you, Mike. So
thank you.
Absolutely.
Speaking for him. And thank you, Joe. Sorry about your technical difficulties. Thank you both. See you both next week. Let us know what's the topic next week.
The topic next week is the hearing procedure, how a hearing proceeds from the beginning to the end.
Okay, perfect. I love it.
Yep.
That's always a good. It's always
Yeah,
good
and
to
that's going to be
refresh.
great, especially having been through 2 different parole hearings with 2 different outcomes. It's going to be great to share that perspective.
Okay,
Excellent.
I love it. Thank you, Mike, for coming back,
You're
and I'll
welcome.
see you all next week.
All righty. Bye
Okay,
bye.
sounds good. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Okay,
You guys have a great week.
okay. You do this.